Look, on Leadership Now, I promised never to do commercials, but here we are. Why? Well, I have a new book in the works. It's coming out spring 2026, and I wanted to give you an advance heads up about it. The title, The Future of Work is Gray, and it's kind of a big deal to me because the book dives into the age crisis that's reshaping work as we know it. It's something that I call age debt, but spoiler alert, it does turn into some solution. There's some hope, there's some positive, and that's called the experience dividend. So if your workplace still thinks that age is a liability, well, it's time to retire that mindset. In fact, we might want to retire the word retire. So yeah, I don't do ads. This is a special occasion, and for it, I am willing to go gray. And maybe Grey Goose will sponsor me, not sure. Anyway, spring 2026, the future of work is gray. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Leadership Now with me, Dan Pontefract. Oh, wow. In the house today, Faisal Hoque. Faisal has a great new book out. Let me give a short bio about you, Faisal, and then we'll get right into a great conversation about AI and humanity. Faisal.
Sounds good.
Distinguished entrepreneur, author, and thought leader, renowned for his contributions in many things, including technology and the intersection of management. Born in Bangladesh, he began his entrepreneurial career at around the age of 14, amazingly. Later moved to the United States, where he built his first commercial software product at the ripe age of 19. He's held management positions at Pitney Bowes and Dun & Bradstreet and founded several companies, and still those things are going strong. Sudoku is a good one. Next Chapter is another one. It's amazing what you've been able to do. Faisal is a three-time winner of the Deloitte Technology Fast 50 and Fast 500 awards. He's authored multiple best-selling books on various lists, including Reinvent, Everything Connects, and Lift. Today, we're going to talk about another one to that pantheon, Transcend, Unlocking Humanity in the Age of AI. It explores the intersection, obviously, of artificial intelligence and human values. His insights have been featured in prominent publications, including things like Fast Company, Business Insider, The Wall Street Journal. The list goes on. Faisal, great to see you. The book is amazing.
Good to see you.
I had a good sneak peek when you're in the midst of writing it. So it's great to know that everyone gets a chance to read The Tomb now. But really, let's start with like the overarching premise, and you get into things that I wish other authors were getting into when they're writing about artificial intelligence, and that's the integration of human-centric values. So AI, human values, why don't we start there? And if you just sort of give us a primer on what you mean by that intersection and how maybe we need to be thinking out for what the human-centric values mean around artificial intelligence.
Sure. Look, I mean, artificial intelligence is not like any other technology. I've been in technology business since, for 30 years now.
Yeah.
And it's not like any other technology. And so when you look at that, from the angle of that, we're creating something that would be able to think and able to be active participant in whatever we do, it puts a different context because one person versus brains of thousands and million people is quite daunting. So when we looked at the book, and when I'm saying we, me and my team of cracking research team that I have, is that we looked at it like, okay, look, there's the business and there's the technology, but there's the humanity that kind of sits in between. And when you talk about the opportunity and the risk, it kind of gets very philosophical. So if you look at the book, it's really intersection of philosophy, business, technology, and humanity, and how do we really protect the human agency and not become a slave to this new technology that we're collectively pushing out there and trying to do something with it.
That's an interesting point to start, Faisal, because you do weave that thinking in throughout the book. And there's a couple passages I'm going to play back to you because I really obviously like the book. But here's one. Let's start here. So I'll read this, or I'll read your own words, Faisal, and then let's talk about your own writing. So you write, A large part of human life isn't really about the destination. It's about the journey involved in getting there. And we might ask ourselves if we want to sit in an AI powered self driving car on life's journey, or if we prefer to drive the car ourselves with all the pleasures and burdens that choice brings with it. More precisely, we will need to ask ourselves what mix of the two will work best for us. Now, that is a powerful metaphor for many different reasons. Let's
Yeah,
just start there. Expand a bit on that metaphor.
sure. It's it's funny you picked up this paragraph because when we were when I was writing about this, I was actually thinking about I had a trip in Stuttgart in Germany, and I rented this a fancy Mercedes, and it was complete. It was not totally self-driving, but it had all the bells and whistles, and this is like sometimes early last year while Mr. writing the book, and started telling me that I'm veering off. I should stop for a coffee break. I had like an 8-hour flight, and then from Frankfurt to Stuttgart, I was driving, and it was giving me all kind of warning sign, and sometimes like actually literally taking over. And I started thinking about like this is I really do I really want to like give up my freedom to a machine that does all this stuff. And then I started, when we were writing the book, you started thinking like, okay, look, the show you see a Netflix stuff, and then next time you turn it on, it's telling you, 10 other choices that are exactly like that. You bought a pair of shoe on Amazon 2 years ago, and it's telling you to write, it's time to buy a new pair that looks exactly like the one you bought before. It's like slowly influencing your thinking pattern, and the convenience, for the sake of convenience, you're outsourcing your thinking pattern, right? Is that what we want to be? And if that's what we want to be, then we've kind of lost our human agency. So it comes from that angle or that thought process.
So do you think then perhaps Faisal, and I know you get to this in the book, so I'm probably asking a question that you know the answer to, but when you bring up terms like agency and human values and outsourcing our decision making, these are very like decisions, agency, almost like eudaimonia. These are philosophical
Yes.
concepts. And so
Yeah.
is it fair to say that partly for writing the book, it's to sort of signal a warning sign that we may end up this way, i.e.,
Yeah.
outsourcing it all and losing agency if we're not careful?
Yeah, 100%. Because I mean, and I know, and as you may recall, the book gets into three areas in the sense that what is our individual opportunity and what is our individual responsibility to protect ourselves. Then obviously, what's the opportunity for businesses and what's their ethical and legal responsibility, and then we get into government. What's their responsibility and their opportunity to guide us, because collectively 3, 5, 10, 15 years from now, what human society becomes is those three types of entities will dictate, right? So if
Mhm.
you talk about individual, since we're talking about the individual element of it, I mean, it's like simple things like, okay, you're an ad executive, you write creative ads, and all of a sudden now you're using a generative AI, or you're using some sort of a predicting model that helps you to decide, okay, what kind of messaging will, resonate, and before you know it, you start little by little, and then you're not even thinking, you just say, okay, give me a ad for this audience, and boom, it just gives you this copy that you're supposed to write yourself. So I mean, there's this slowly and gradually in our personal behavioral pattern and in our work pattern, we have these great opportunity and threat to completely outsource ourselves. It
Mhm.
doesn't even have to be replaced by another human being. We're doing it to ourselves, right? So and it's very, I mean, it's very addictive in the sense that I mean, I can't think, so let me go and figure it out. And and I ask question, and it tells me, right? I mean, now we're talking about consumer-centric generative AI stuff, but I mean, most of my actual work is on the enterprise side.
Yeah.
Enterprise side, is similar, like because like I mean, we're gonna be faced with next generation of AI where they're really agentic AI, where they're gonna be like a human partner, and we're gonna have to allocate work to this thing or machine, whatever you want to call it. And as a leader, you're gonna have to be faced with, okay, how much do I give it to that agent, and how much do I give it to my human resource? How much do I really, get rid of the human resource in the name of efficiency, and what does that do to me? So these are very philosophical questions, right? There's a competitive and profit motivation behind this decision, but these are very philosophical questions.
Well, if we segue a little bit more further into the enterprise and the organization, when you bring up agentic AI, Faisal, and there's a really good example of HR, human resources. So where can we save money, time, increase efficiency, effectiveness of HR? Well, many CHROs and CEOs, sorry, are saying things like, "Well, with agentic AI, let's just get everyone video screened, and then we'll get the AI to comb through the transcription, and then in the transcription, we'll decide whether or not we want to actually have that human being interviewed by another human being." So do you see philosophical questions like that having to play out over and over again in the advent and era of AI?
100%. And I mean, because AI is a mirror of our society, right? And AI is a mirror of whatever we're feeding it. So obviously, there's a huge element of bias. So, for example, you could say, okay, well, we're going to get these people, just taking, unpacking your example of interviewing. Do the, maybe because a person who actually created that data set and the large language model that driving that answers from the data set of resumes, as an example, maybe they're biased toward people in New York versus Toronto, right? So you're getting all the candidate from New York because it was already biased. So how is it fair to the person that's not in New York to have a fair shot at getting that interview? You're already eliminated, right? So the human bias is going to be multifolded, exponentially, portrayed in this mirror, because now the algorithm is that much more biased because you fed a bunch of biased data. And by the way, it's not just and it gets very personal, not just from professional point of view. I mean, like I think about this quite often because I have a cancer surviving son who's in now 22. And he has a cancer that's usually are found in people who are later in their life. So all the data you find are they're more from that age group, not necessarily younger generation. So uh, the predicted model of what kind of medication may work, it's not really accurate, right? So it goes on and on. You can take any facet and you can say, okay, how uh, navigating these data is for your appropriate decision making. That's where human agency comes in, because there's a gut element to making decision, right? Your gut tells you, nah, doesn't sound right. So if you're going to outsource all that, who's going to tell you that it doesn't sound right?
Right.
It's the machine is not going to tell you it doesn't sound right.
Isn't that the truth? Well, if I, like you, spend a lot of time in enterprises and the organization,
Yeah,
I think of myself at times like an organizational sociologist running around and trying to help people
yeah,
with culture, leadership, values, purpose, right? You and I are very much cut from the same cloth.
yeah.
What are you advising leaders these days when it comes to the transformation of culture, leadership, et cetera, with AI sitting right there, at the fingertips of everyone? How will AI impact negatively, positively somewhere in between the future culture that leaders are looking to create.
Look, it's gonna sound very like what's new about what about to say. I mean, it starts with purpose. And the reason it starts with purpose is like, what are you trying to do? Are you
Yeah.
trying to be more effective? Are you trying to be more innovative? Are you trying to make your people more productive? Are you trying to increase your profit margin? Whatever the case may be, that's where you start. And then you decide, okay, what's the best model to adopt for my organization in the context of technology like artificial intelligence, right? So, as you remember in the book, we kind of prescribed this framework, not a methodology, because there are tons of methodology that you can hang around those two framework that we prescribed, and we kind of called it uh, you know, uh, purposefully called it open and care, meaning open, meaning be open to opportunities, but care about humanity to protect the humanity. That's where open and care comes from. But open and care stands with a bunch of acronym in the sense that, you got to outline your purpose, you got to partner up with not just the a technology partner like AI, but also your human partner. You have to experiment what works and what doesn't work, and then you have to be able to kind of navigate what you want to adopt. So you may have a portfolio of opportunity, but you may choose like three or four of them are really worthwhile pursuing by considering the care aspect of it, meaning what's the governance model that shows you that what are the risks versus the reward, and how do you infuse those risks inside of your portfolio of opportunity, and have a kill switch, and making sure that you're not really doing stuff that you should be doing. Just because you can doesn't mean you have to, right? So that's where the ethics and governance comes play from the organizational context and a leadership context.
Well, as I mentioned to you offline many months ago, I was like so happy to see open and care as the names of your frameworks in the book, because those are big words of mine in my writing
Sure.
books as well. Okay, that being said, unselfishly, it's back to you, Faisal. The you just touched on something I wanted to get into, which is essentially ethical AI decision making, and so
Yeah.
there's like probably there's many ways probably to unpack this question, but let's start with there's government society sort of level ethical AI and kill switches, et cetera. And then there's what enterprise and organizations need to be thinking about from ethical AI use, regulatory frameworks within the organization, care, open, otherwise. So why don't we start first, government policy land? This seems to be literally debated on a daily basis, whether you're in the
Basis, yeah.
EU, whether you're in Asia Pac, and whether you're in North America, differing opinions on, let's just say, kill switches. So what's your take on what society really needs to be thinking about at that government policy level?
Look, I mean, it's a very complex topic, and as it turns out that I mean, I just published this article that's kind of based on Transcend today on Fast Company, exactly on this topic,
Hmm.
because of the last 3-4 weeks of conversation around DeepSeek, and US has this now a project called Stargate. All kind of stuff is going on, right? But I mean, you have to look at it from a geopolitical risk point of view. You have to look at the human risk element aspect of it, and then you have to look at it from how can we innovate. How can you not stifle innovate but still have guardrail, right? So those are the three elements. So
Yeah.
if you look at the geopolitical risk point of view, I mean, my last 8 years of DoD and DHS in U.S. Government, it gives me an angle where I can't not think about it. And there's rogue agent inside the country, and there's all kind of other stuff outside of the country, and there's a race going on, right? So,
Yeah.
for example, if you look at something like DeepSeek, and there's lots of conversation about TikTok, and now there's lots of conversation about DeepSeek in the sense of collection of data, manipulating the population in certain behavioral pattern and thinking pattern. I mean, those are all geopolitical risk, and obviously there's the technology race that's going on, right? So
Yeah.
there's that element of it. So, and then if you look at from a internal and from a enterprise point of view, there's you have to kind of classify, you categorize the enterprise. There is platform vendors and there's business vendors and there's the consumer, those kind of category. Platform vendors meaning people who are making the chip, people who are making the large language models, meaning NVIDIA's and OpenAI and Claude's and those kind of vendors,
Yeah.
and there's the businesses who are adopting it. And there's the consumer, because unlike any other technology, I mean, this is highly democratized, right? I mean, it's not like nuclear energy, like you and I can just go and grab it, but you and I can go grab any model we want from huggingface.org to anywhere, right? And if you look at the last couple of those terror attacks that happened in U.S. soil by the rogue agents in U.S., they were highly technically competent
Yeah.
and used AI and Google Glass to accomplish that. So if you look at that whole picture, from a government point of view, you have to come up with legislative framework that has legal structure that actually punishes people who are trying to utilize this for harm. And you can go spend probably a day talking about deep fake and all this other stuff. But there's also has to be legislative framework that prevents accessing some of these sensitive technology without regulation. I mean, if you can't just go on start building, creating drugs in your backyard, nor you can start creating a nuclear reactor in your backyard. Why would you be able to do that with a more powerful technology like AI in your backyard? There has to be some sort of a legislation and the framework that prevents you from doing that. But that's not that's not stifling innovation. That's being responsible, right? So
Mm.
that's my take on the government side. And I don't think we have any kind of uh, agreed upon framework of legislation in US yet. There are a bunch of, in the context of writing books, I did spend some time with senators on the both side of the aisle, and there's actually a bipartisan framework that's done by Senator Blumenthal and
Mhm.
Hawley on this topic, but it's still very light touch. It doesn't go even anywhere near the calamities that we're talking about.
Need some more grown-ups in the room, Faisal. We need you on the case, I think. I laughed a little bit to myself because every now and then during some workshops or keynotes, I'll bring up the 2016 example of Microsoft and Tay, the attempt at Microsoft after they worked first in China and then in the Redmond team to build out an artificial intelligent chatbot to Twitter, Tay, and it lasted 24 hours because Twitter turned into, or Tay, I should say, turned into a misogynist, Holocaust denier,
Yep.
Nazi supporter, right? Just terrible stuff. But what you're making in the book with sort of that introduction to the story is you bring up other historical examples, and you actually ensure that we as leaders should be looking to our history and other
Yes.
lessons with technology in general that we need to
Yeah.
apply going forward in this new era. So tell me a bit about your perspective of history and how that should inform where we're trying to head with AI in a value-centric world.
Sure. Look, I mean, it's both history and philosophy, right? I mean, look,
Yeah.
I mean, you can look at, the atom bomb as an example, right? It could have been. I mean, we did some really bad stuff with it, but it also we got very, proactive and kind of put some guardrails. So that's what created that you can, not everybody can go and get access to these kind of things and do whatever they want to do. Now, so that's the history lesson, right?
Yeah.
And the but in terms of AI and in terms of this information technology driven technology, I mean, this generation kind of grown up with it. We take it for granted. If we can't have it tomorrow, the world will fall apart, kind of a mentality. And we have fed the reason that chatbot turned into the way it turned into is because it's just grabbing stuff that's out there and then putting it back to you.
Yeah.
So what social media contains these days. I mean, it contains exactly that kind of stuff. There's
Right.
some good here and there, but it's mostly those kind of bad stuff, right? So here on, and that's why, I mean, in that article that on Fast Company article today, I mean, it's a wake up. We need it like yesterday. It's like, we need I don't know what we're waiting for. And I guess some disaster has to happen. That's the lesson from the history. Till some disaster happens, we don't tend to be very proactive, right? And we've seen this kind of like, last 15, 20 years of social media where, there's an element of AI in the sense that algorithmic, algorithm manipulation and whatnot. But we haven't seen this level whereby the technology itself regenerates thoughts and ideas and pushes it out there. So I think, that's why there are so many warning bells by so many people who are actually worked on these kind of system that talks about the fact that we got, we have this small window. And then actually that's how we end up the book, that what humanity will be is what humanity does or doesn't. So collectively, whatever we do, that's where we will end up. And I don't think anybody has the answer what we should be doing, whether that's a business leader or whether people like you and me writing and talking and practicing this stuff, or the platform vendors. But I go back to this question of just because we can doesn't mean we should or we must. That's kind of where I
Yeah.
stand on the topic.
You're I don't want this any listener or viewer to think that this is a calamitous situation. In fact, you're very hopeful. Transcend
Yes,
is
I am.
to me a very positive book in how
Yeah,
we can intersect sort of humanity or human values, I would say, and then the point of artificial intelligence. And we tease it a little bit with both the open and the care framework. So why don't we start
yeah,
with open? So tell us a bit of, well, if you want both, like mash them together if you so
sure.
choose. But these are hopeful paradigms, frameworks.
Yes,
So tell us a bit
absolutely.
about those too.
Look, I mean, there's all sorts of things you can do as an individual, as a business, as a government agency that can make human life better, more productive, more creative, more, a better quality of life. You name it, you can do it. So, take for healthcare. I mean, the drug discovery process, the cost of care, the accuracy of diagnosis, these are all is getting better and will get better. Coming up with predictive models for weather patterns, coming up with product and services that actually matters, that's more convenient. All that can be done with technology like AI. And the reason we call it open is you have to be open to ideas and open to exploration and see what are the art of possibilities and pick and choose the ones that makes more sense for people, planet, and prosperity by mitigating the risk. Right, that's the
Mhm.
opportunity. So that's why I'm optimistic. And I look at my last 3 years, both from on the corporate side and providing the product and services that I'm providing, utilizing AI, but also on a personal level. I mean, I do research so much faster
Yeah.
because I have these tools, right? I mean, I actually loaded up my 10 manuscript and I don't remember what I wrote like 25 years ago, right? So it's very easy for me to go there and say, okay, what did I say here, and pull it up, and it pulls it up, right? It's not
Right.
like Google search. It's like 1,000 times faster and much more accurate than that,
Yeah.
right? And then so these are all the positive stuff, and the reason we talked about care is really not like, okay, don't do this. It's like coming up with the risk mitigation model and a risk portfolio for every opportunity that you're exploring, and how do you protect yourself so that you don't, you know, extinct, the humanity as a whole, or slowly become a vegetable, if I can use that term, where you completely outsource your every faculty and you no longer want to think. I mean, it's like, that movie by Pixar a long time ago, Wally. We're all
Oh
on a
yeah.
ship, and
Yeah.
I mean, that could be the disastrous situation because we've killed the planet, and now we have to move to Mars or somewhere. But even there, the journey is done by some AI agents.
So, as we sort of wrap up a little bit, so I got a couple other questions. It comes back to the
Yeah,
human
please.
being, like the individual. So, what excites you, Faisal, in the potentiality of AI and humans?
What excites me is that you can be much more productive and much more creative, and I am experiencing that as a creative person, as somebody who loves technology and business and government. I'm experiencing that, so that's what I'm most excited about. Right, I can learn so much more and so much faster. Right, I mean, there's obviously lots of hallucinating, stupid stuff that it feeds me that I have to actually see whether it's correct or not correct, but I can learn things a lot faster. So, learning, if you're open to learning and if you're open to exploring, it's an exciting time for that, right? I mean, you don't have to, it's no longer accessible by handful. I don't have to sit in my, with my professors in Ivy League school to learn stuff. I can learn it, sitting on my desktop and actually having intelligent conversation. And also there's a humanistic thing, like, my mother recently passed away. She suffered from dementia, and the tail end of her life, she would go back and forth between English and Bengali.
Hmm.
Bengali was her mother tongue, and nobody in her nursing home would understand that. And imagine a AI assistant right with her, who was that assistant could be translating
Hmm.
whatever she's saying and give her what she needed. That would have elevated her quality of life and make the caregiver much more easier to deal with her, right? So I'm excited about those kind of opportunity. I'm excited about drug discovery, where one day a patient like my son wouldn't have to be on maintenance. It's cured, right? So I'm excited about those kind of opportunities.
Well, AI did help my garden patch last year when I just took photos of some of the vegetables that seemed to be wilting. And it's like, hey, it needs more nitrogen. What are you doing, you idiot? Like gardener.
Yeah,
It saved my
yeah.
garden last summer. Okay. So, last couple here. How can I or a human being, like an individual, prepare to thrive in this sort of AI driven world without losing their own human values or human qualities?
I'm gonna use this overused word, being mindful and conscious, meaning decide how much you want to outsource, in the
Yeah.
sense that just because you can email, you can write an email with your generative prompt. Don't do it. If you can, why? I mean, your email is just fine.
Yeah.
It will show your flaw, but it's yours. So start with those kind of basic things, so whereby you don't, you know, I mean, it's convenience is a drug, right? So I mean, we're creature of comforts, but we can also become a creature of comfort from the thinking point of view, where we don't want to just think. We just want to be entertained 7 by 24. Why so many people are on social media and TikTok? Because we love to be entertained. We love the swiping things all day long. Right? I mean, it requires now discipline not to do that, right? So, but if more you do that, more you're outsourcing your faculty, and that's where the danger comes in.
Well, I'm not going to ask you if you would swipe left or right on me, but the last question, Faisal, that I have for you is if there's one thing you hope that a reader applies from Transcend, which is just a fantastic book, whether it's life or work, what's the one thing you hope that someone might get out of the book, I guess?
I would say have an open mind and keep learning. I mean, don't stop learning. If you stop learning, you lost the battle. And so that's on that side. On the other side, look at AI as a partner, not as a outsourcer. There's a difference. So if you want to consider it as a partner, you can actually elevate you as a human being, what you do and what you produce. So those are the two things I will leave the reader with.
This is amazing. Faisal Hoque, the entrepreneur, serial entrepreneur, author, thought leader, Thinkers 50 dude. Where can we find out more about you? The book again, Transcend, Unlocking Humanity in the Age of AI. And by the way, folks, I know you've been quite humble, Faisal, but proceeds from the book actually go to a very good cause, which you brought up your
Yeah,
son a few times today.
yeah, sure. Yes. So much appreciated. So because it's deeply personal, but you can find me on my website, which is faisalhaq.com. I'm active on LinkedIn. That's the only platform I use these days to share whatever nugget of thing that I learned. And books are available everywhere. It's will be available everywhere, including the audio version, audio book. Like Barnes and Noble, Amazon, or wherever the books are sold. And thanks for having me, Dan. I really enjoy our conversation.
Well, you're a good man. There's nothing artificial about you, Faisal. You are intelligent beyond belief. So we'll just call you I.
Thank you,
And
sir.
human. You're a
Take care.
human. Oh my gosh.
I'm
So
a human
human and dull.
being.
Everyone,
I'm a
Faisal
human
Hoke,
being.
we'll put all that information in the show notes. But again, Faisal, congratulations on
Thank you. Thank
perhaps
you.
your best work yet. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
the book. And thanks for allowing me to be a pre-reader on that as well.
Thank you. It's an honor.
All right, folks, that's another episode of Leadership Now with me, Dan Pontifac, Faisal Hoke in the house. Again, the book, Transcend, Unlocking Humanity in the Age of AI.